on this episode.
So she goes like this, why isn't everybody like you? I said, I have no idea, but I'm going to tell you something. My dad's already at the refrigerator, and he's not even watching the credits. So he just knows if he liked it or not, you know? So it's a stupid thing to argue about. But I'm thrilled when I see it directed by Barbra Streisand and Richard J. Alexander. Like,
yeah.
You know, please, like, put it on my tombstone.
From the coveted corner booth in a little bar in the center of the Coachella Valley Universe, welcome to another Big Conversation with Patrick Evans and Randy Florence. Gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Big Conversations Little Bar. We are recorded live at Skip Paige's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California. We like to call it the center of the Coachella Valley Universe, and Skip really likes us to call us that. We're here, and of course I got our producer, John McMullen, and my trusty co-host each and every week. He's back for more abuse. Randy Florence is here.
I'm sitting in a different spot. I'm really freaking out right now. Like, I'm not exactly sure where I'm supposed to be looking.
I have to say, this is your better side.
Is it because the light's behind me and you can't see my face as you look at me?
Much more handsome from this angle. You should always have your wife sit right here. So.
Oh, okay.
Just tell.
Hey, No. I got to say something first.
By all means.
I want to celebrate. A little over a year ago, you and I were sitting at the bar at Little Bar here, and we started talking about doing a podcast.
We did.
And within about 15 minutes, we had decided we were going to do a podcast. And today is the 1-year anniversary of our first episode with the owner of Little Bar, Skip Paige. We made it a year.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But no one would cancel us because we're not getting paid.
Somebody'd have to listen to us to decide they wanted to cancel us.
And Skip hasn't thrown us out yet.
Has your wife listened yet?
She doesn't even know that I do a podcast. I mean, like, I will say, she's like, what did you do today? And I'm like, I had a podcast. Oh, really? And then she just kind of glosses that over.
Yeah, I play mine at home. My wife goes, hey, that guy sounds like you.
I thought she said it sounded like Don Knotts.
All right, let's move on.
We are delighted today to have our guest, Richard J. Alexander, who is responsible for some of the biggest Broadway shows, like all of the ones that you like. The good ones you were involved with, and you continue to work today. You just got back from New York. Richard, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, but you guys are lying to the listeners. I happen to know this is a popular podcast, or I wouldn't be sitting here. That is the God's truth. I'm always the guy asking, who's your audience? How many listeners? You know, I'm like a...
What did you tell him, Patrick?
I'm a press whore. You know? That's why I'm sitting here, and I needed a free hamburger.
Well,
cheeseburger.
I was...
Excuse me.
I was at the Purple Room in Palm Springs and seeing, I believe it was Billy Stritch, wasn't it?
We were there for Billy Stritch.
And Richard and I got to meet Richard, and I guess I was talking to Billy, who's a great piano performer. He's the king of New York cabaret music, and just terrific. And he comes out here. He's coming out here in February. But Richard introduced himself, and I was talking about the podcast. He said, and I love what you say. You said, I might be a good guest for you. Look me up.
Yeah, I tell people to Google me all the time. Don't forget, I'm new in town, right?
And I did. And I was like, holy shit, he would be a good guest.
That's kind of what I thought, too.
And then we saw each other at that party before One Night Only. But the thing is, for me, like, I just moved here, right? And I'm a newsie, and so I found Channel 3, like, immediately. You know what I'm saying? And so you get to learn the personalities, and you meet the people. And then I saw he was on triple duty with the cooking and the weather and all the theater music guests, which is my jam, at the noon time. So, you see him in public. He's a celebrity to me. I'm like, hey, I'd be a good guest for you.
Well, I love it because we'll be sitting here and everybody that we talk to is like that. They know Patrick Evans. And at some point they'll look at Patrick and go, man, I just love you. And then they'll look at me and go, man, you guys are awesome.
Well, what's great, when I came in, what I love that they're doing now is they're showing his longevity at the station. So they start with those youth pictures with a full head of hair. And I'm like, wow, he's been there a long time. Good for him.
22 years.
So congratulations. But this is phenomenal. A year and a podcast. And by the way, just so you feel better about yourselves, nobody gets paid for podcasts. So you're kidding yourself.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
They're notoriously hard to monetize. But let's get to you. Let's talk about, first of all, talk a little bit about, you continue your work today. So kind of tell people exactly what you're doing and how you managed to do that from Palm Springs.
Well, it's interesting. My career, I really am a Broadway baby. You know, that is my curriculum. It's my university. Like, I knew I wanted to go to work on Broadway, and I couldn't do anything else, so there was no choice. Like, my dad would say, you need something to fall back on. I'm like, what, Dad? I want to be a CPA or a hairdresser, you know? So, and when I went into the business, you know, I'm 70 now, there were hundreds of us because it was a calling. Now there's contests and YouTube and TikTok and all kinds of entryway, but, you know, I went through the education and the music and the stuff, and you know, I come pretty gifted and pretty smart and bilingual. You know, my mother was Cuban, my dad was Spanish, so you know, I knew I wanted to go to New York when I was 10 years old, and my dad saw that because he was an educator and a CPA by trade, and he started buying me the New York Times on Sundays, and I'm like, Ma, look, the Andrews sisters are over here. You got to take me to New York. And the first show I saw was Mame, and I couldn't believe, like, I was nuts, and they made fun of me in my town and everything, and you know, I had the last laugh. But, you know, fast forward, the Broadway career happens, and then bringing us into the now, it's always been theater, and the people I work with are actors who sing, you know, people who really have the lungs and the thing, no auto-tune, no nothing. But my life changed when I did Bernadette Peters at Carnegie Hall, the Grammy nomination, the reviews, like, my whole life changed in one night. And all of a sudden, I was the guy directing, you know, they call me the Diva Whisperer. And it just happened. And if you were me at 10 years old, and you look in my bedroom, there's a whole Barbra Streisand wall, and there's Liza, and you know, and I ended up working with everybody. And so, what are the chances? Whatever sort of, you know, thing was going on in my bedroom at night, you know, it was happening. So
you kind of manifested it.
Yeah. I guess I don't know if I believe in any of that, but I sure knew I knew my stuff. And the other thing is, to do the work that I do, you also have to be a fan. And professional and know what you're talking about and blah, blah, blah. But so the Broadway melded with the concert careers. So all the Carnegie Hall debuts I did with Lea Salonga, you know, Brian Stokes Mitchell, Bernard, you know, just so many debuts. And then we start traveling the world in the Sydney Opera House and all that. And Barbara, you know, concerting all over the world and then doing the television specials and this last one on Netflix. And you know, even I have to pinch myself, like seriously. And so that's where I'm at. So you can do what I do now, you know, because you don't have to do 8 shows a week at a Broadway theater going into a stage door and fly wherever the work is. So what happens now is, like, I just came back from 2 weeks in New York. The problem is now with life is that you can't break one appointment. If it's raining or snowing, you don't have the option of saying, let's meet next Wednesday. So you got to be sure you show up for everything. Then you got your show tickets. Then you know. So it was jam-packed. I was exhausted when I got home. And but I still love it. You know, I said to you before, you know, like, I am very opinionated. I can be brutal. But I'm not jaded. I'm still that 10-year-old kid. So when I go to a show and the lights go on, I still get that little bit of electricity because the possibilities are endless.
I want to ask you about that.
Until they're not. Because
I'm kind of the fan geek on the show here.
All
so I always want to know how you got there. So you grew up and you had the posters on the wall. Mm-hmm.
You start in community theater,
okay,
which is, you know, and there's lots of community theater here. Like,
parents were encouraging, and
yeah, my parents were, because my dad saw the passion, and it's important to be passionate about something. I couldn't care less about sports,
right?
And you know, I was into show tunes and going to the library and, you know, traveling downtown and being an usher for free. I was obsessed, and I learned all my musicals. I know every lyric to everything from the big headphones in the library. So, and then you take your first trip to New York. But what happens then is you start starring in the musicals, right? Was I any good? I was certainly enjoyable. But the thing is, the enthusiasm, when you look at a show when you're young, you just see the actors. You don't understand lighting design, stage management, scenic design. You're just looking at the people up there. So I started out as a performer, and I was pretty damn good. And but then, I just started to matriculate. And the real turning point for me came when I did Amadeus. I was in the original Broadway cast with Tim Curry and Ian McKellen and Gene Seymour.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had a small part, and I was an understudy. And my friend said to me, Richard, take the second ASM contract, the assistant stage manager. You get an extra $35, right? This is 1979. And you collect valuables, right? Giving back to the actors at the end of the show. But you get to go to all the understudy rehearsals. Go learn everything and then try to get to direct the tours. And that's exactly what I did. It was the best advice I ever got.
Zoot Suit, was that your first?
That was my first Broadway
performance?
show. Yeah. So that was at the Winter Garden where I saw Mame and where Barbra Streisand did Funny Girl. So I thought, I could die now. I'm 22 years old. I'm nuts. I can die now. No, you can't. There's more to do.
But talk about that as somebody who's dipping his toes into that stuff right now. How did you get involved in Zoot Suit?
You get called by your agent and you go in and audition. And so, and you don't believe it. You go to enough auditions, you get rejected. So it was Patricia Birch was the choreographer who had done A Little Night Music and Candide and Playing Our Song and Luis Valdez from the West Coast and it was Mexican. It was the Sleepy Lagoon murder case and the Zoot Suit riots, right? Yeah. And I was Cuban, and they're all running around going, orale, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I had to learn a new kind of Spanish, right? And the reason I got the part is because whoever played my part in Los Angeles didn't want to come to Broadway.
Oh.
But I worked with Edward James Olmos, and all these friendships, by the way, they all still stay. I just saw Ian McKellen this summer in London. I went to see him in a play, and I said, Ian, do you remember me? And he goes, come here. And we spent an hour together just laughing and talking because we were together for a couple of years, pre-Broadway, Peter Hall, who wasn't knighted yet. There's so much rich history. I really benefited from the British invasion. So if you look at Amadeus, if you look at Song and Dance, Andrew Lloyd Webber starring Bernadette Peters, Cameron McIntosh, my life with him. I really did well by the British import situation. I used to live on the Concorde. Just go back and forth.
Back and forth, yeah.
Yes, so, and also it was written by Frenchmen, and so I would go to Paris a lot or to the south of France, so it's I've had a extraordinary
That
life.
10-year-old kid has got to look forward and just be amazed.
Yeah, it's just, but sometimes I forget what I've done. Like, I'm serious, and I'll be opening the boxes from the move, and I'll go, oh my God, I forgot I did that. Like, my bio's so incomplete with all the little shit that you did, but it's, and when you're chasing it, by the way, that's a very good point. You're not clocking it. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know where I got all the time. I really don't understand how it all happened and how I went to all those parties and Studio 54 and like all of that. Obviously, I was younger and energy and all that, but that was my life. Like, I lived right across the street from Studio 54.
That's crazy.
At 300 West 55th, 19F, and I had binoculars. And I would go like this, who's there tonight? And if I liked the crowd, I would go down and get it. Listen, Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, I'm not joking.
That's a real good advantage to be able to look and see, do I really want to hang out with the... Okay, yeah,
exactly,
I do.
But you get a taste of who's going in.
And why do all those people have rolled up $20 bills?
By the way, well, that's a whole other story.
That's a different thing.
But don't forget, there weren't cell phones. There was nobody to tip you off. You know what I'm saying?
That's right, yeah.
And you didn't have to worry about somebody taking a film about you while you were at Studio 54.
No, because video wasn't invented yet.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I used to be in love with General Hospital.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't home, I would have my roommate turn on the tape recorder so that I could hear it later. This is before VHS and Beta. Because I was obsessed with Luke and Laura and the whole thing, and I was really nuts.
So you transitioned from performing and you decided instead to move behind the scenes.
It's not really behind the scenes. It's sort of encompassing. So, like anything, like you watch actors, you become, what you don't want to be in this and that. But I also stage managed. I was a choreographer. I was a dancer in my early life. I was in the movie All That Jazz. Mm-hmm. I danced in Saturday Night Fever. Like, we thought it was a bomb when we were making it.
Really?
Oh, terrible. Like, we thought it was ridiculous. And also, don't forget, you guys hear the Bee Gees. We were dancing to beats. The score wasn't in yet.
Oh.
So Lester Wilson's taking us through the thing. But I'm so lucky that movie happened, period, because I did a whole bunch of commercials because everybody, wanted all that. And John broke the barrier, and we're still friends to this day because everybody was blonde that would get a shaving commercial or something, and he broke it open so that ethnic people... One of my biggest commercials in history was a thing called Papa Pepsi. It was filmed in Brooklyn, and the storyline was Grandpa comes to the docks, from Italy or wherever the hell he comes from, and and we're in the backyard partying, right? And I was laughing while we were filming because the drink was Pepsi Light. It was new. It was a blue can, and I think it had a lemon flavor or something. And I go, "Where's the wine?" Like that what really would be happening, right?
That's right.
But because nobody talked in it, they were able to voice it over in Greek, Italian, French, because it was the immigrant experience, right? And the money was literally, I'm so not joking, this was the days of BBD&O. Checks were just falling out of the mailbox every day from a different market. And that was like my life changed.
That's fiscally. A pretty good gig.
Yeah, that was my fiscal life change.
When I was working, when I first moved to California, I worked in Orange County at this little TV station, and there were a number of folks who also were working in LA, and there was a whole group. They lived together in Hollywood, and one of them worked part-time at the TV station, but all of them were commercial actors. Oh. And all they needed to do was get 2 or 3 national commercials.
Because the royalties were outrageous.
Yeah,
it's a different thing now. Were you ever an actor in your life?
I've done.
I know you love theater.
Yes, I've dabbled a little in acting, but not like Randy, who's studying it.
Playing a part?
Except I still say theater.
Well, that's true, yes.
Not anymore. Not after
this one.
You're banished from the kingdom. You're either going to the theater or you're not.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I haven't done any theater stage work since college, but I know a gentleman here named Christian Sesma. He produces and directs movies and writes movies, and he's put me in a couple of his movies. And,
that's good.
And it's it's fun. Yeah. I've done stuff.
You
like
got
that.
a credit for one of them.
I've got a credit for several of them. One of the first film I ever did here was with it was called Adopt a Sailor, and Baby Newirth from Cheers.
No, from Chicago, excuse me.
From Chicago,
and from
of course.
Sweet Charity.
Yes, she's an incredible stage actress. That's true.
And singer, dancer, legend.
Peter Coyote was the male lead, but the young actor was Ethan Peck.
Oh.
And it was really fun to do that. And now he's gone on to be Spock in the new Star. I'm just like, damn it. Why couldn't that have, I knew it was going to be one of us. Just kind of, but he is Ethan Peck. He's Gregory Peck's grandson. Yeah. So.
Well, for the people who are listening who love Broadway, yesterday was a really sad day. We lost Cheetah Rivera.
Cheetah Rivera, who you were very close
91
with.
years old.
She was my first professional Broadway friend. I moved to New York in '75. She was starring in Chicago with Gwen Verdon. And we've remained friends throughout. But Hinton Battle, who won 3 Tony Awards, one of them was for Miss Saigon, which I was the executive producer of. And so it was just, I was blue, and of course, I'm 70, and the clock's ticking, like Stephen Sondheim says, every day a little death. Not in a fearful way or anything, but every day it's going to be one day less, And it just hits you. And all these people that you see when they were so vibrant, and that's why I've become so attracted to Nickerson Rossi Dance, what they're doing over there.
Oh, they're doing great work.
No, unbelievable, and I've committed myself 1,000,000,000% to them, and the kids, and I love what Michael's doing, and it's just, but I've seen so much change in a year and a half. I've seen really transformations, and so I love what they're doing, but they're getting really professional training. They're world-class, like Paul Taylor Dance Company kind of thing. And Bobby LaFosse from ABT and New York City Ballet was in town. I brought him over to see the kids. I just love them. I love the parents. I love everybody. It's just a great place. It feels healthy, and it's welcoming, and that's what I love about it. And, I'm visiting theater groups little by little, in the Valley and stuff like that. Even at my place where I live, they have a musical theater appreciation group. So I'm running in the other direction.
Get away.
So it's not who I was. I'm still who I am. As we talked about, it scares the daylights out of me.
Well, there are so many folks who retire to Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this before we started rolling tape. They do a lot of speaking about what they did and who they were.
They had a life of a certain thing, and they want to be treated the same way. I get it, but it's a little odd. But but
it's funny how many of them stay active in town too.
Yeah,
wanting to. I mean, once you're on stage, you want to be on stage. Somebody who's really special to this community is Kristin Chenoweth, and you've had quite a relationship with her.
She was just here this weekend.
Yes,
that's right. She was at the McCallum.
Talk about your relationship with her.
Well, it's interesting. I remember her first big show in New York was a thing called Steel Pier by Cantor and Ebb, right? and I had never laid eyes on her or heard her, and those bunk beds involved or something. You know, it's Coney Island. And I hear this squeaky voice. I went, oh, my God, this girl was born to do musical theater, right? And look what happened. But before that, she did The Fantastics off Broadway. A lot of people don't know that. So when I did a show for her at Carnegie Hall called Evolution of a Soprano, I had her come out with the vocalese book that we all grew up with in college, and the audience was way ahead of me for the laugh.
They got it?
Yeah, they totally got it, because anybody who's trained or sung a note knows that. So anyway, it's been a lot of years. We did My Love Letter to Broadway. We did For the Girls. We've done Carnegie Hall. We've done Sydney Opera House. We've been all over the world. And she's insanely talented.
Yeah.
And then I got involved in her Broadway boot camp in Oklahoma.
You still do that?
I didn't this last year. I did it through COVID. We did a hybrid.
Yeah.
And then it's about scheduling, really, what happens. But I saw her the other night, and the audience loved her. She sold out 2 nights, and it was nice. I hadn't seen her since she got married, so I hugged her and said, "How you doing, Mrs. Bryant?" and hugged her, and it was nice,
Yeah,
So,
she means a lot to this town.
This area gets everybody. Like, I think I go out more here nightly than I ever did in Miami. Mm-hmm. There's just everybody's here all the time.
It's exhausting
it's your
sometimes.
friends in one night only, or they're at the Purple Room. It's like every day. I'm like, what am I going to eat tonight? I've had the short ribs and the fish and the, it's like it's hard to choose the food, so you drink.
All right, you were talking about doing the...
Which is how I met Patrick.
That's
Drinking.
true. At the Purple, having a drink at the Purple with Billy Stritch.
After hours. I didn't even know the bar was open after hours.
It's amazing how many people start out by saying, I met Patrick having a drink.
Yeah. Well, I'm sociable.
I don't
drinker.
play a lot of golf. I don't. I mean,
Me
I
either,
have a
Patrick.
hobby.
Right on.
Hobby.
Right
Cocktails
on.
counts as a hobby.
Although I have taken up pickleball.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and it's, I'm fine, but it's everybody who falls all the time, and they call the ambulance 3 times a day.
That slows down the game.
Well, because these people...
You're probably the youngest one in your
They
group.
never danced, and, move. So by the time they're headed into the sink, they're down. So I become a very valuable player, and my name went on a list. I'm like, how did you get my number? Oh, it's up I take it down.
I want to talk about some of the people you work with. You mentioned Bernadette Peters and Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
And you spoke about how you like to work with people who, big lungs, great voice.
Have gifts,
and
can bring material to life.
What an incredible performer she is.
Yeah.
What a great voice.
And a huge crush of mine for my whole life.
Yeah. She's in her consciousness, the Steve Martin years.
Yes.
She was a movie star, Pennies from Heaven, all that stuff. And she's amazing. I mean, she's Broadway royalty for starters. But I'm in high school, right? And I hear Dames at Sea, on the album. Pitter patter, what's the matter? I'm like, who is that? There are voices that are distinct, like radio, so I don't even know who anybody is anymore. But if you hear Bernadette, if you hear Cheetah, if you hear,
Barbra.
These voices are defining, and they're soothing. Johnny Mathis was just here. I've worked with him. It's unmistakable, and it's such a part of your fabric, you know what I mean? So I remember the first time I worked with him in the studio, and I was crying, and he goes, "Are you okay?" I go, "Yeah, you're Johnny Mathis." Like, what am I doing here? He was doing a Broadway album, and Jay Landers told him about me, and blah, blah, blah. Same thing with Barbra. Are you okay, honey? Yeah, we've never done that song together.
And you worked with Barbra Streisand for a long time.
23 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I'm very proud of that, and if I never did another job in my life, I love all of them, but she's my girl. Like, that's it. And it's just everything, the artistry, the humor, the love. And I'm glad the book finally came out because, people have such misconceptions.
Absolutely.
And, the papers go for everything. But it's, I live it, so I don't pay attention to any of it. You know what I mean?
So what is she like to work with?
Fantastic. What are we doing today, honey? And you set up the schedule and stuff like that. And, we code direct. So I'll go, come on, pull up a chair. I love it. I love her. I love looking into her blue eyes. I just love the whole situation. But she's so smart and so creative. And we haven't raised our voices at each other in 23 years. We're great collaborators. And I remember maybe one of my favorite conversations is when she called me the first time we did a television special. I think it was 2006. And she goes, honey, do you want to be on the same card as me or do you want your own card? I'm like, Barbara, I'm over 50, I'm gay, I want to be on the same card as you. What are you, nuts? So she goes like this, why isn't everybody like you? I said, I have no idea, but I'm going to tell you something. My dad's already at the refrigerator and he's not even watching the credits. So he just knows if he liked it or not. So it's a stupid thing to argue about. But I'm thrilled when I see it directed by Barbra Streisand and Richard J. Alexander. Please, put it on my tombstone.
Just looking at the incredible list of names that you work with, and let's talk about Bette Midler.
Yes, what about her?
Is she fun to work with?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're just mentioning all my crushes, right?
Yeah.
There's some of my crushes, too.
You're talking about talents. This is my thing. I missed the golden age of musicals by 10 years, but I got to work with all those people.
That's interesting.
The Gwens, yeah. So I was 10 years late when they were doing all the classic musicals, but they were still in their prime, in their 40s by the time I got to New York. So take Bette Midler. I used to get stoned in college and go see her, at the Lowe's downtown.
Was Barry playing
Barry
piano?
wasn't playing by then, not for the tours.
Okay.
But, the Harlettes and Melissa Manchester, this was all part of my upbringing. So you get called into the room and you're doing stuff. And it's important, the catalog. Like when I'll bring up a song to Barbara, she'll be surprised that I know that. But I know every lick, every song, every album, even, Je m'appelle. Like, I love Je m'appelle Barbara. So when I'm depressed, that's what I put on. Clopin, Clopin. I know every word. Bette Midler, Skylark, Hello in There. The looking into the face of the homeless person on the street and who they were, just because these are singing actors. It's like being Kurt Weill-ish. They're brilliant, and she's got soul, and she dances, and the way she throws down a line. So when you work with the different people, there's a different thing. Bette's rat-tat-tat-tat. Bernadette has a Queens thing to her. Barbara lands a line like a Brooklyn girl, with a punch. Kristin's very Oklahoma and Okie, and and you write with syntax when you're writing with the stars, so that things land. It's very interesting. I can't say that I learned that or I studied that. I developed it out of necessity. It's almost like bluffing yourself into a job and learning on your feet.
But once you get known for it,
you also read the person so well.
Yeah, that's a great statement. You know why? I never do anything on paper. I take the energy in the room. Like, let's say Kristin says something, she's on all fours, on the piano in a kimono, and she goes, you like it doggy style? I go, that's funny. We're going to do it. Or Barbara looks at me one day, we're doing How Lucky Can You Get? And the line is, you want to know what it's really like? Fantastic. And she looks at me and she goes, you want to know what it's really like? Fan-fucking-tastic. And I'm like this, ooh, I want to use that. She goes, I can't do that. And I go, yeah, you can. She goes, Marty. She goes, yeah, you can. And it's in the show. And when it happens, they go wild. So when the reaction comes, it gets meatier and grows into something else. So,
but you're able to sit there and go, I remember exactly when we decided to do that. That's incredible.
But it happens, and it's together. It's combustive. That's why you can't do stuff, on Zoom. The energy in a room, or when somebody comes up with an idea, or they present you in a show and tell with a medley. Like, I hate medleys. And I go, why would you put those together? It's like people go, I'm going to do the arc of a relationship, or I'm going to do rain songs. Like, fuck you. What are you talking about? And when I met Polly Bergen, you know who she is, right?
Yes, of course.
So she was 70 years old, right? And I get asked to a meeting at Les Cirque, yes, that's where we had lunch. And when the press agent called me, she'd like to meet with you. And I really thought she was dead. I really did. I said, she's alive?
But you can confirm she wasn't.
So I'm at the lunch, and she looks at me, and she's a handsome woman, beautiful chest and dazzling eyes and manicured hair, like dazzling, right? And of all the stars I ever worked with, that was the one that killed my dad. Like, oh, now that's a star. Polly Bergen.
Polly Bergen.
So, even after Barbara and Bette and everything. But she looks at me across the table, and she goes, I'm thinking about doing an evening of love songs. And I said, why? Are you in love? And she thought I was a smartass. She goes, oh, you're a smartass. And I said, yeah, and you're abroad. And if you can sing tomorrow at that piano, I'm in. But basically, my question was, where have you been for the last 40 years? And that's the story we told. And I'll tell you why I'm proud of that. Because even her manager fought with me. Oh, they'll laugh at her, this, that, whatever. I said, you just got to shut up and leave me alone. I'm making contact. We opened right, at Feinstein's at the Regency, and I did a dress rehearsal for her, which is never done on the Dark Night, because I didn't know what could be trusted and what couldn't, or how much she would be able to pull up from nerves and stuff. The review was on the cover of the New York Times, not on the arts section. And then when that show opened, my life changed again. And the Diane Carrolls and and everybody was asking for meetings. It's sort of crazy, but I guess this is what I'm trying to say. I'm about truth. A lot of people are doing like show business, screaming, yelling. To what end, Tell the truth, make contact, and then if they don't like your truth, fuck them. I can't be bothered with that. Do you know what I'm saying? But
your truth helped Polly Bergen.
Yes,
because the story got told.
But
Right
she finds her truth. I mean, that's what you
right.
do. You peel away.
Guess what?
The
I was
bullshit
stoned one day, and I'm laying in bed with my lawyer. I wasn't in bed, but we were laying on the bed watching the Helen Morgan story. I'd never seen it, the televised one, the Playhouse one. And I watched her when she sang My Bill and everything. She was holding a handkerchief on the piano. And so I went to her house the next day. I said, Paul, you got a handkerchief in your drawer? Come here. And she grabbed it. And I said, sit on the piano and let's do Bill. She goes, what? She goes, Richard, they'll laugh at me. I said, let's just see what happens. So what happens is there's a time travel in the head, and all the stuff comes back like riding a bike, and it stopped the show. Everybody has a fearful moment. They're fearful of being judged. What if this doesn't work? And once you're the audience, we've lost. Don't do that. Keep your place. I will tell you if it doesn't work. I promise I will protect you. But I got to put it in front of people to prove my point. But fear is crippling. It's crippling. And I'm there for them. Like if I was as beautiful as them and as talented as them, this is what I would want to see. And because I see everything, I know what is shit and what is real.
But who's the bravest performer that you've worked with?
All of them are brave. Every single person we've been talking about are brave because at the end of the day, you either have to commit or not. We're doing it together, right? So I always say, Stephen Sondheim wrote this great lyric, don't leave me halfway through the wood. We did this together, and we got to put it to the test. But it's live, and it's once sometimes. Carnegie Hall's one night, and you're recording it, and the New York Times is there. My whole life changed.
I get goosebumps just listening to you talk about it.
And then going to the Grammys, like, come on, I'm like, what?
You find this moment of vulnerability for these performers.
I love them, but why would I steer them towards trouble or danger or a compromise?
But I imagine, and I've been around the edges of show business a lot, it's hard to find people who are like that, though, because there are people who will lead you to trouble. I mean, for their own purposes.
Are you talking about my role or their role?
Your role.
Yeah,
people in your role.
But that's why I'm the diva whisperer. That's why we're talking.
What did you do with Julie Andrews, whom I love?
So Julie Andrews was great. This is just a great, great story. So, of course, everybody loves Julie Andrews, right? But where she was in her life and in her career is that if she was ever going to return to Broadway, she had promised Blake she would do Victor Victoria on the stage. So Cameron, who I worked with and for, had done a thing called Putting It Together, which was another like a side-by-side by Sondheim. And he had done it successfully in London. He was bringing it to New York. And
That's Cameron McIntyre.
Right. So I ran his company for 12 years in North America. So anyway, he made a deal with Manhattan Theater Club, which is off Broadway. And, she was offered it, right? Whatever the sequence was, she wasn't going to do it. Right, and we wrote her and said, look, it's not going to move to Broadway. It's a limited run. Come to New York. She sang for Stephen Sondheim, and we did it, and it was joyous. Her, Krista Rang, Rachel York. It was fantastic, directed by Julia McKenzie. One of the joys of my life. And my favorite Julie story when we recorded the album. And you know what it's like recording an album with Stephen Sondheim on the couch, reading the paper. It's just
no, I don't know what. Yeah,
not been there.
It is surreal. I'm telling you, it's surreal. Like, look at my. But there was a song in it called "My Husband the Pig," right? And we're doing playback in the sound thing. And this killed me. Like, I just can never forget it. So she's listening, right? And she's lovely and handsome and gorgeous and nice. And she listens to herself, and it's done. She goes like this, why do I always sound so goddamned pleasant? Because she's trying to kick ass. My husband, the pig, the way she's... And I just fell off the couch. But it'll stay with me forever. So when the album plays or comes on Sirius XM on Broadway, you can't forget those things. It's hilarious.
you have worked with Debbie Boone, and she just performed in One Night Only.
Yes.
Her voice is still, really remarkable.
Not only that, the fact that she has maintained her beauty with no work. She's a stunner. So she's done a lot of theater, and I met her. We did a show in New York at Feinstein's. The show I did with her was magical because John Otto was still alive, who had worked with Rosemary Clooney. When Rosie died, she left Debbie all her charts. So it was a tribute to Rosemary Clooney, this show. And it was just beautiful. And sometimes we'd be in rehearsal in Los Angeles, and we'd be working. Like, I'm going to get teary, actually. And she'd just start crying, like, I don't know. And you make a safe room, you know what I mean? But these things actually happen, And so, and I don't know, nobody can take those away from you, And I don't know, like, those are my memories, and they're vivid when you think them. So I haven't thought about that in decades, and you bring it up, and I'm forced to face it. You know what I mean? And that's what happens. It's crazy. It's like thinking about your dead mother. You never know when it's going to creep up on you.
But you work so closely with these people.
Yeah, it's intimate. It's
really
is
very intimate.
And you've stayed friends with them through the years.
Sometimes. And by the way, let's be honest, it goes through periods. It's good till it isn't, and then. But I've had a couple of divorces and remarriages. It just happens. You know what I'm saying? It's dynamics. It's protection. It's it's a relationship.
It's a relationship. You guys are working so closely and so intimately. I mean, another great talent that you worked with, Sam Harris.
Yeah, of course. We were just talking on the phone yesterday. It's crazy you would pick him out of nowhere.
Wow.
But Sam and I mean, listen, I was like all of you. We saw him on
Star Search.
Star Search, yeah.
And I met him. You know where I met him? In a steam room in Los Angeles. I was doing Les Mis, and I was going to whatever the club is there, LA, whatever. And I'm in the steam room, and he walks in, and I'm like, and you want to meet him, you know what I mean? But how do you do that? You got a towel on, do you shake, whatever. That happened to me in New York at aerobics class. It was a tough class that day at Health and Racquet Club. So this guy's in the steam room, and who's in the class? And I go, God, that was brutal today. He goes, yeah. And I said, I'm Richard. He goes, I'm Desmond. I said, oh, like Desmond Child in Rouge? And he goes, I am Desmond Child in Rouge. And I was like, because the only Desmonds I knew were Desmond Morris, who wrote The Naked Ape, and Desmond Child in Rouge. And that's how I met Desmond Child.
I want to get into that because you were the one who brought Desmond Child back onto the stage after 30 or 40 years.
He's
Talk
Cuban.
about that.
He's Cuban.
Yeah.
And we used to have Christmases together in Miami, and our mothers knew each other and all that. But, he's a famous singer-songwriter, tons of top 10 hits. He's worked with everybody.
Right.
But he hadn't performed. But I saw him in the days in New York City, all those places. So we did that, and that's what got him American Songbook at Lincoln Center, and I did the awards for him, the La Musa Awards, which is Latin music and stuff. So, yeah. How
did you get him back on after all of those years?
Well, he sought me out. He wanted to do it, right? So he sought me out, and then, it's tricky when you're dealing with friends when it comes to your price tag. You know what I'm saying? And so
I know. I work with Patrick.
Yes, you let the managers and the things take over because at the end of the day, it's like, I don't have family and friends pricing. So that's the first thing. But, Desmond, who was, the visual star, he still yearns for that a bit. And, I see him more as a, Carole King, great musician, vocalist, legend.
Yeah.
And so...
you must have been proud, though, to be the one who got him back on
I was really
stage.
proud of the show, and also we reunited Rouge, so that was historic. But, the thing with Desmond is when I brought Ricky Martin to Broadway and put him in Les Mis, he said to me, I want to make an English-speaking album, right? Because he had done Un Pasito Pa'lante Maria and all that. And Desmond was a fellow Cuban. So I called Desmond and I said, you got to meet with Ricky Martin. Oh, no, he does boleros. I said, no, that's Luis Miguel. This is a different thing.
Different guy.
Yeah. So Ricky and him met, and guess what? Livin' La Vida Loca was born. And that is a true story. It's in Ricky's book. It's in Desmond's book. That actually happened. And so we rode that gravy train for a couple of years. I'll never forget when we did. No, seriously, like it was a big deal.
That's an entertainment term.
But I like the way you threw that. Just said, we rode that one for a while.
Yeah, but the thing is, so all of a sudden we're doing that big rainforest thing at Carnegie Hall. Sting, and of course Sting is Ricky's hero, so I'm there in the moment they meet. These things are life-shattering. But I said to Ricky, this is a true story. I think it's in the book, his book. they wanted him, and I said, Ricky, it was a Frank Sinatra tribute, right? So I decided we're going to do, actually Desmond picked the song, World on a String, and Hector Garrido did the thing. So I mapped out what the arrangement would be like, on the finger, on the finger, what a world, what a life. I'm in love, and he's dancing back and forth at Carnegie Hall. They'd never seen anything like this. And he dragged out a thing, and I had Armani make him a pencil suit with a hat. So when he revealed his face, it was up to the balcony. So I said, Ricky, we do one song, and you'll leave the building. We're not singing no New York finale, nothing. You're getting in the car, and you're leaving. So he calls me, we did it. And the next day, who's the shock jock?
Howard Stern.
Howard Stern said it was the best part of the show. But it was a calculated performance. We opened Act 2 and left the building. But the funniest thing was there's Elton John, there's James Taylor, there's Sting, and they saw the number and they go, Richard, what do we do? I go, I don't know, you didn't hire me.
That's right. Sorry. Tell me a little bit about the Chaplin Awards.
Oh, the Chaplin Awards is one of the greatest gigs in my life. So, because I'm a theater person, right? So this is film. It's film at Lincoln Center, and it's been in existence for a number of years. And the Charlie Chaplin Award is given for us. So I've worked with Scorsese and De Niro and like everybody, Catherine Deneuve, Barbara, Redford, Jane Fonda, and this year we're honoring Jeff Bridges. So it's great, and you do a lot of homework, and you watch the films, and you do film packages, and you have rehearsals in the afternoon, so you get to talk to everybody. Like, we reunited Billy Crystal and Meg
Ryan.
Yeah. So, and they hadn't been together. No one had seen them together, right? So I was giving notes, and Billy Crystal goes like this, "Are you giving me notes?" And I like panicked for a second, and I went, "Yeah, I think so." And he goes, "I'm just sitting with you." But I like panicked, But there you are, like reading with George Siegel. Like, I have so many pictures at these rehearsals, and you're just like talking to people, and it's like you do pinch yourself. So this year, I can't tell you who's lined up yet because it's gonna be a bit of a surprise. But
nobody's listening. Go ahead.
I just had a meeting in New York about it, and but it's one of my favorite nights of the year. Like the year we did Spike Lee was right after COVID.
Yeah.
So to have those, it was just it's a great thing.
I wanted to ask you, how'd COVID
Viola
affect
Davis
you?
last year. COVID affected me terribly.
Yeah, talk about that.
Terrible. So I had COVID in 2019 before we knew it was COVID. I came back from New York. Kristin, my assistant, and me, we all got it. I was sick for 26 days. Oof. I couldn't walk the dog. I couldn't pick up my head. I lost 30 pounds. And I called my doctor and I said, you got to come see me. I think I'm dying. What is happening? Now, remember, there were no memos out in the world.
Right, nobody knew what it was, yeah.
So when we found out, I was enraged. Like, I was furious, right? So, really sick, and couldn't figure it out. So, it got long once we found out, and I was addicted to MSNBC. I was angry. But then when the antibody test came in that April or whatever it was, I went and I was loaded. Like, I haven't had it since, and I've gone for all the vaccines and stuff, but I've never had another bout of it. But I had it terrible, and I thought, could I have died?
You had it very early on in one of its original, obviously the thing mutates, but I imagine it was at its most virulent when you had it.
Yeah,
so
it was bad. So,
but somebody who was used to being in front of people and working live and everything.
Yeah, you did a little bit of online, but it was nauseating running to the computer for meetings. But this is what really happened. Like, am I going to go to the grocery store or am I going to die? Yeah. I would spray the mail with Lysol, like I really did. Now, I lived on water, so I could go swimming because we had a sandbar and everything, but the ocean was closed. So it was crazy.
And this was in Miami.
Yeah, by the time 10:30 comes, I mean, honest to God, it's time to call the drug dealer. I'm not joking, because the days are really long. And so, after you Marie Kondo your drawers and your socks and your underwear, what the hell am I going to do? And I'm really not joking. We were going insane. So I started these Friday Broadway cocktail parties with my assistant, and they were star-studded, 4 pages of stars, on every Friday. And they always had themes like Bye Bye Birdie or this or Christmas or, And actually a lot of people connected and helped each other with insurance and stuff like that. So we're thinking about doing a reunion one, but it was scary. And then we started sneaking out, and a birthday would happen. You're not supposed to sing or anything, and then we're drunk, and then you fall on your face. And but Nick Cordero was a friend of mine, who was one of the first to go and get his leg cut off. The big Broadway guy.
Oh yeah.
And that was brutal. And so I remember vividly going into my backyard and screaming to the sky, if there's a God, take me. I don't have a wife and a child. Like, I was really, really upset because not long before that, we had a meeting at Fiorello's. He wanted to meet me. His agent called me, and he wanted to do an act because he had to make money because they were about to have a baby. She was pregnant, and he told me that. It's just brutal. It's brutal.
Well, you worked with Il Divo, and they lost
Carlos. Yeah.
Carlos.
So it's just, and by the way, what people don't understand about stardom or relationships or working, the friendships, because you have to protect yourselves and each other and them, and you get very insular and you get very close very quickly. So you have a lot of different families. Do you know what I'm saying?
And you're human beings.
It's like discovering Leah Michelle when she's 8 years old. So you go see her, but all these friendships, they last. Her dad owned a deli in the Bronx. I'm loaded with information. Does anybody give a shit or does it matter? I have no idea.
We do.
Yeah,
that's why you're here.
Yeah.
But the world is so small. I mean, it's a large world, but in that sphere, the number of people you get to meet and be friends with is very small. So it's a very insular community, and I imagine those friendships are extremely intense.
They are. And what's interesting about living here now is I've had more visitors here than I ever did in 30 years in Miami. Everybody comes through Palm Springs.
Yes.
I'm in shock. If they're not performing here, they're coming to something or an event or a writer's festival. Or it's been extraordinary and a little hair-raising for my schedule.
So listen, I want to talk about this. Les Mis cannot be talked about without talking about you. Talk
That's
about
right.
your history with
I
that.
always say I am Les Mis.
You are Les Mis.
It is my hands down my
And it
favorite.
is.
It was a life-changing Broadway show when I saw it.
Now, what year did you see it? That's important.
It would have been.
Did you see the original?
It was in New York. It was probably 1991.
Okay, so you saw the original. Because I always say the first 10 years, whoever was in it. Yeah. But, it's an extraordinary story. So I just had finished doing Oliver as a stage manager, dance captain on Broadway. Cameron McIntosh produced, had Patti LuPone, Ron Moody, a very short run.
Ron Moody was unbelievable.
Yeah, he
in
was
that.
also crazy. So let's just start
Tell us
there.
more.
Well, to play that position, that party probably had to be.
Crazy. Michael Jackson came. It was just nuts. Anyway, so I'm headed to Santiago, Chile, because we talked about directing Les Mis, and I'm bilingual. So I was going to do the Spanish world premiere at the Teatro Nacional, the Santiago. And this was around when the time the movie Missing came out, where you get shot on the streets if you're not home by 1. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? But Cameron had told me about Les Misérables, that he was going to do a musical. So I'd never read the novel. I knew Hunchback, but I never picked up Les Misérables. So I go to Coliseum Books, which is no longer there on Columbus Circle, and I say, do you have a copy of Les Misérables? And this big fat thing lands on the thing, and I'm like, oof, nobody wants a job that bad.
Yeah, do you have the Reader's Digest
I'm not
version?
a particularly quick reader, right? But I'm in Santiago, depressed, going, why did I take this job? And I start reading it, and I get as far as the ABC Cafe. And I'm freaking out. And I called London with the time difference. I said, Cameron, who's going to direct this? And he said, well, I'm talking to Trevor Dunn and John Caird at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And they'd done Nicholas Nickleby, which I knew well. And I said, can you get me an interview? So he did, and I flew to London. And Trevor was out of town, but John met with me. And I'll never forget the meeting because I was a little over-enthusiastic, but I think he patted me on the head and thought, oh, you little musical baby, have a good flight back to New York. I get back to New York, going to work at Song and Dance now, and I start hearing rumblings in the community. Oh, I heard you had an interview at the Royal Shakespeare Company, blah, blah. They're asking us what we know about you. So things were looking good. So then it's on, and I go to see it, and I'm freaking out, and Red and Black comes, and the ABC Cafe, and I knew it was going to change the world. I just knew it. I don't know what told me. And I had a meeting with Trevor and John at Joe Allen the next day, and they said, okay, we'll sign. Oh, and I also made criticisms about what song could go, and this should move there. I'm 20 years old. Like, are you
So
nuts?
you knew it all.
Yeah, but I was right, and they figured that out. So they said, you'll be our assistant. I said, oh, no, that's not going to happen, because I was Peter Hall's assistant, when I did Amadeus, and I never saw him again because he was running the National Theatre of Great Britain. You guys are running the Royal Shakespeare Company, and these things tour, and there's, it's a lot. So we made a deal, and I became the associate director, and I was the executive producer. And it's some of the greatest years of my life, and just very, very special place. The Macintosh years, because then Phantom happened, Miss Saigon happened. It's crazy. If you're lucky if you get one huge success.
No, when I looked at the shows that you were associated with, I mean, and you just named, like Miss Saigon was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I saw that on Broadway. And
but look what we went through on that. We had to cancel it, $28 million advance. They didn't want Jonathan. They didn't want Leia. Who won the Tonys? Jonathan, Leia. But it was a shit show. The unions, we lost Best Musical, but we ran 8 years. Will Rogers closed. It was just a illumination of lesson after lesson after lesson after politics. And, I was the moving target because I wasn't Cameron and I wasn't Trevor or John or anybody. I was second in command but had the power. It's very interesting, and I decided never to put myself in that position again. It was complicated, seriously.
What haven't you done that you wish you had?
What hadn't I done?
Is there anything that you haven't done that you wish you had?
Yeah. I mean, climate has changed in terms of... So I directed a production of Porgy and Bess, with Symphony, Florida Symphony, before the Black Lives Matter.
Right.
That could never happen again for me. So I'm thrilled it did, right? My dream was to do The Wiz. The reason I did Les Mis at the Muni was to get the first-class rights to The Wiz. That could never happen now. And I still feel like I could do it better than anybody. But it doesn't matter because there's now a new card to play.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I'm sort of glad I'm on this side of the curve of the career. But I was a part of something vital, fantastic. There's no bitterness. I'm still in the game. I somehow can't seem to get out of the game. It's extraordinary to me.
The next thing you were doing, what do we get to see?
Well, the next thing is, are you familiar with the Housewives franchise?
Yes.
Yeah, so I work with the Countess Luann. So I've done her show.
My wife is going to be so excited.
So Countess Cabaret, and we're doing a brand new show that opens at the Wiltern to start a world premiere called Marry F. Kill, which is the game Marry Fuck Kill.
Right.
So we've been rehearsing that. I just did that in New York, and we open up February 16th in Los Angeles. And I'm doing like a whole bunch of things, but I don't know. I can't even think. Like, I'm so fried.
Well, I know you said you just got back from New York and you're leaving for...
I've got film at Lincoln Center. That's April 29th. I've got... let me just think of the dates. March 6th, Hugh Panero opens at 54 Below, so the album just came out that I co-produced, and I directed the show, and so that was a huge success. I've got Norm Lewis. We're doing a show called Summertime. It's his first time not doing a Christmas show in Manhattan. It's Tony Week, so we have 6 shows, and that'll sell out. So, I'm keeping it going.
So a couple of weeks ago, were you telling people about your appearance on this podcast?
No, but I will now. And I have quite a few followers, believe it or not. Like, it's interesting.
I believe
like,
it.
What do you communicate most on? Like, I'm a Facebook whore, and I use Facebook like it's Instagram because I don't understand Instagram. I don't think I'm famous enough.
I haven't figured out Threads yet.
And the Twitter thing, I can't. Somebody wrote me on Twitter today, like a professional person sent me a private message. So now the thing happens. You go, I'll get to that, and you can't remember where it came from. Like,
Which
my
social
CPAP
media?
machine had to be picked up yesterday, and they didn't come. What was it? An email? Was it a text?
Well, it was funny because I knew I had to reschedule our appearance with you, and then I couldn't figure out how I got in touch with you in the first place.
I know. I went back to your original message saying, me too.
I was like,
and then I realized,
you
friended me this week to find me.
It was like, I realized it was the old-fashioned way that I actually had your phone number. I'm like, that makes it a lot easier.
It's sort of annoying. Like,
we were going to write you a letter.
That's right. I've gotten rid of. We kind of have to have a Twitter X thing, but I never go on it. I just ignore it entirely. I use most of the stuff I do.
X still says retweeted, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's so crazy.
It's silly.
But what do you use? Do you like Instagram?
Facebook.
Do you think it's an age thing? Because
Yes.
we're old, we like Facebook?
Yeah, I like Instagram.
It's sort of like AOL.
I've got my MySpace account. Nobody's responding
No, now
to
you're
it.
lying. You're trying to get a laugh.
I am. Every week I try to get one.
Yes. Yeah.
I started Instagram just to spy on my kids.
There you go.
I just wanted to make sure they weren't posting nude pictures. But
this whole thing about slipping into the DMs and everything, it's all too much.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, this has been delightful, and you were exactly correct. I'm glad you told me at the Purple Room that you'd be a good guest.
I thought I might be.
You
but
were.
even when we sat down, whoever's listening, they were going to say, we're going to talk about this, or do you not want to talk about anything? I'm pretty good, and I'm a pretty open book, and of course you know where to draw the line, but I'm thrilled to be here because I do love it here, and I'm a new entry into the community and stuff, but I want, whatever I get involved with here to matter. Like I'm not that surface that I just sign on to everything. So I'm still looking and searching and finding my way.
Well, we've had some really terrific guests. But it's really fun, particularly when we get a guest like you, who is still so active and vibrant in the arts community, because you're here and you're part of this community, but you have such a broad reach and you do so many interesting things. So thanks for spending a little time in our corner booth.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I'm not supportive at all. It's like entertain my ass or I'm out. So that's why I'm here, because I have a little experience watching it. We've all run into each other socially. Yep. So I actually waited for this. Like I wanted this.
Well, wow. Well, I hope the rest of your future gets better.
Listen, look at what I did in my bedroom. Look what happened. Now here I am on your podcast. Come on, are we kidding?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is a delight. Thank you
so
you very
much.
Patrick, we pulled off another one. I can't believe
this is number 31?
No, this 47, something like that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's like more than a television season.
We're going to keep doing these until my wife starts listening. That is, I think... That's the goal.
Tell her we talked about certain things, and maybe she'll tune in.
That's right. Once again, our thanks to Richard J. Alexander, fantastic guest.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to follow you around. I want to be like the guy in the corner of the room.
That's interesting. All these people, I'd love your life, trade places. You be careful what you wish for.
No, I don't want to trade places. I just want to follow you.
Yeah. Actually, let me tell you my pet peeve before we close.
Uh-oh.
So, when people look
people who want to follow us.
Yeah, whatever. They're like, you're so lucky. And I really resent that. Luck has nothing to do with it.
But you worked your ass off.
Really fucking hard.
Yeah, you did.
And nobody's given away anything. And I didn't join any contest. And, my parents weren't famous or weren't in show business. And I busted my ass.
You earned it all.
And learned on my feet.
And you're still earning it. Still earning it.
Look, I'm bluffing right now.
I want to say congratulations for an incredible career, but that kind of seems silly.
That's all right. I'll take it.
Which, though, continues. And we will look forward to following your work with great anticipation.
We'll be in tighter touch.
And for Skip, did you like the burger?
Totally.
Oh, good.
Very excellent cheeseburger with sautéed onions and
then
fries.
We're guaranteed another week here at Little Bar.
That's right. So we like to thank Skip and the team here today. We had Chloe and our brand new Alexis. We'd like to thank John McMullen, our producer, who does such a great job and make sure that it gets out on all of the various podcast platforms that you enjoy listening. Randy, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me come back this week.
Well, it's really good to have you. And you'd posted you were going to be here on Facebook, so I couldn't say
you were so if I do that every week, I'm guaranteed a spot.
I'm still not sure what you look like because you have backlight. I can't see your face.
Well, he requested not to be identified.
Okay. That's as good as I look.
Alan Horowitz, our in-house counsel, who is here on a regular basis. Do we have any legal issues today?
Uh-oh.
Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Big Conversations Little Bar. And we'll be back real soon with another great episode.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Big Conversations Little Bar. Recorded on location at Skip Paige's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, the center of the Coachella Valley Universe. This program is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. All episodes are available from BigConversationsLittleBar.com or from most major podcast portals, including Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Music.